feel like what you guys are about to undertake, you're not really sure what you're getting into. So the tool set that you're going to need to have available to yourself is going to be varied and adaptable in a lot of ways. And when you're translating this over to the bike shops in Africa, it's hard to determine, has anybody been to Africa?
Oh, there's one.
One? All right, you just became an expert in the class. So the tools that they have at the bike shops in Africa are probably extremely rudimentary. So this is the toolkit that I bring to any cycling event in the US. And in here I have the ability to work on just about anything that's thrown at me. I feel like when you go to Africa to work on things that are similar to bicycles in a lot of ways, we're going to reduce this tool set down to maybe, I'm going to say 4 or 5 tools. And so this is what you have to work with now. Going from a toolkit that has everything you need to work on anything that's thrown at you that you're very familiar with, down to a very simplified set of tools to accomplish some basic functions. On the wheelchairs, we're looking at pretty simple bolts, metric and standard, and a couple of screws here and there. So if you have any experience in the cycling world, you really need to take a step back and say, what are the most basic things about bicycle repair that are synonymous with the wheelchair? And really simply, the first couple of things we have to look at are threads and bolts. So you're going to need tools and or a way of thinking, which is just another tool, that will help you work on this wheelchair. Very simply, you look at it, and the first thing you see, like I said, are nuts and bolts. So I feel like a very adaptable wrench is one of the first things you're going to need in your box of tools. Something simple like a pair of pliers is another tool that you're really going to find useful. What we like to fix all of the new $10,000 bikes with at the bike shop is a hammer. That's a big deal. And then, very simply, a screwdriver. This particular one I like because you can have multiple bits, and it's all in one piece. These are all things that I think they would have in Africa, and should you make any recommendations to them, they would be able to adapt those recommendations to the wheelchairs they have there with the tools they have there. Making recommendations with stuff they don't have available to them is maybe less productive. That being said, maybe one other thing that would be really useful to them is I may add a ratchet set to this. And a ratchet set and very simply some grease. And I think with what we have here, we would be able to make a lot of improvements to what they have going on. And obviously a ratchet. So, that being said, I think I'd kind of like to open it up to you guys and hear what kind of improvements you're thinking about making to these wheelchairs with pre-existing bicycle parts, given you only have this set of tools to work with. Some of the issues I've seen with wheelchairs that they have, obviously they're taking them over rough terrain. They don't have ramps coming off the sidewalk. They don't have always paved roads. So traction is an issue. Stability is an issue. And also there's some simple creature comfort things that you might want to think about. How they're connected to the wheelchair. Is there anything you can do to this, I'll call it a saddle, that that you could do to improve it with what we have here and possibly what they would have there. I thought of simple connections you could make to the tubular steel on here to add water, a basket to carry things. These are all things you could do with readily available bicycle parts. So let's think about that.
I have a quick question. What are your thoughts about these solid tires that will never go flat but aren't very forgiving and might not have the best traction versus bicycle type tires that have a lot of advantages, but clearly fixing a flat isn't in the tool set here, the smaller tool set?
Everything to fix a flat was given to us when we were born. We really don't need anything to fix a common bicycle flat tire other than our hands. The screwdriver could be used in the case of a bead that's extremely tight on the rim. But from what I saw and what they have readily available to them, fixing flats is, it seemed like, I don't know, it might be difficult to say. The adapting the common wheelchair wheel that's normally accepting a solid rubber tire is not in any way conducive to a contemporary bicycle tire. It's very different. The geometry of the rim that we have here is nothing like a bicycle rim. So adapting this to a modern bicycle wheel, a pneumatic tire, would take quite a bit of modifications. Would they have the parts, the money to do that there immediately? That's questionable. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah. What would happen if we had one of these wheels or these kind of wheels on a bicycle?
The biggest problem with these kind of wheels on a bicycle would be, one, there's no braking surface on them. There's not a hub system that's readily adaptable for gears. And again, on a normal bicycle, cornering would be difficult with this because you're putting lateral stresses into the tire that's going to unseat this solid tire. On a hooked bead and tire rim combination, you don't see those kind of limitations.
What are other questions that you all have about adaptations and using by other bicycle parts?
So in your opinion, you don't think that you could take a wheel off and put a bike wheel on to the axle for like the small axle that's on a wheelchair? Because I think the bearings are in the wheels.
Yeah, the bearings are fixed inside this wheel, that's true. I think you definitely could.
You think you could? Mm-hmm. Not with the tools that have them.
You know, this is pretty simple. This is just a big nut on the outside.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's definitely something you could do. I think you would need to experiment a little bit to see if it's worthwhile. The traction on this is definitely an issue and would be improved with a mountain bike tire,
Yeah.
where you can run it. This has no pressure, right? In a pneumatic bicycle tire, you can run lower pressure, so you get a larger footprint and contact with the ground and improved traction. How adaptable that is going to take a little MacGyvering. Most bicycle wheels attach from two sides, and there's some compressive forces you use to seat the bearings and hold the wheel stable. This is not the case for this one. So there's some things you need to do to the type of bearings in a normal bicycle wheel to adapt it to this kind of connection.
What do you mean by that kind of, with, like, so you're saying that bicycle wheels have pressure on both sides to keep it, or what exactly?
A lot of the wheels on a bicycle, I mean, they will connect on both sides. Your fork has two blades. There are only very few bicycles that connect from one side, similarly to a wheelchair. So as the wheel connects from both sides, the loading on that hub, how does that work? just the simple parts you're using to connect it are very different. And the way, yeah, I think you'd be hard pressed with the diameter of the axle on a normal bicycle wheel to connect it to this and have it be stable. It's a really small diameter. And if you connect just one small diameter on this and load it from only one side, you're going to see that the wheels want to fold out like this. If you connect it from both sides, then you have some, who are the mechanical engineers that can help me with this? Nobody? I'm struggling a little. So if you have a really small axle and you're grabbing it from two sides, you have there's some torsional rigidity built into that fork that's going to hold that wheel stable. Similarly, if you take a really small axle like that and you hold it from only one side, it's really going to be easy to fold that wheel over and possibly bend that axle. So that's one of the limitations you're looking at. It's just how it's connected to the bike. You could feasibly do it, but you'd have to modify the axle and get quite a larger contact patch. Does that answer your question? Go ahead.
What are the standard sizes of bike wheels that would be looking like that would fit currently? Is there any real standard of size that we'd be looking at? Or?
26-inch wheels are kind of the standard worldwide. And if you're thinking about getting replacement parts and such, that's the wheel size you'd be looking at.
That's diameter.
Yes. Yeah. The bead diameter, which is maybe more specific, is 566 millimeters. Is the bead diameter to fit a tire onto there. A lot of wheelchairs seem to be 24-inch wheels though. They're a little bit smaller, you can turn them over a little bit easier. So for the operator, it's easier to turn over a 24-inch wheel than a larger diameter wheel.
So these ones have the 24-inch and bicycles?
I think these are 26, but I've seen a lot, and my short research on the interweb showed me 24-inch wheels on this.
So there's an outer rim on wheelchair wheels that allow you to grip it.
Right.
I was wondering what your opinion would be between metal spokes versus plastic spokes as far as attaching something like that and the cost difference.
This is all molded, well, not quite molded together. There would definitely, again, be some modification to that. You'd need a bicycle rim specifically made with attachment points for this extra railing for your hands. But if you have a larger diameter bicycle wheel, there's a whole lot more to grip onto. Most bicycle wheels that you'd apply to this are going to be 2 inches wide or so. And that's almost the width of this entire bit, the solid rubber tire and the railing. So conceivably, you could just be grabbing onto the bicycle wheels themselves and not just the railings on the side. Perhaps. Attaching this extra the hand railing to a standard bicycle rim could be difficult. You could probably do it just on the metal spokes. That's reasonable. I think if you had enough attachment points, it wouldn't load any single spoke too much. I think it could handle it.
How feasible do you think it would be to attach like a disc brake system onto the wheelchair?
I think it's very doable. For sure with the machine shops and drafting we have available to us here, it's something real we can do. Over there, working on it, getting parts for it, might be more difficult.